Hi, I'm Andy Power and these are my top tips for fishing corn for carp. So today we've got one bait on our side tray and that is sweet corn. Today we've got the Banoffee corn. Obviously there's loads available, but the great thing about corn is it's sweet and I think the carp respond to that. So by having that Banoffee flavour in with it, I think it can only help. I'm only expecting you to use sort of 2 or 3 tins today, so it's not going to be too expensive. Obviously on those warmer days where you are feeding a lot, you might want to choose supermarket corn just to keep the costs down, but 2 or 3 tins today is ideal for me, so that's what we're going with. Obviously I mentioned the great thing about corn is the sweet flavour and carp seem to respond to that, but the other good thing is it's heavy and it stays on the bottom. It sinks quickly, stays on the bottom, and it keeps foul hookers to a minimum, which is perfect on commercials with lots of fish. The other great thing is when you throw it, it makes a big plop and it can draw fish into your peg. It's just a great fish attracting bait. So before we start fishing, let me show you the 2 areas of the peg I've chosen to fish. Today we're at Court Farm Fishery. It's a typical sort of commercial, got lots of open water in front of me. And on most commercials you have a bit of a shelf go out sort of 5-6 metres. Here today it's quite a new fishery, it's all hard bottom, which is ideal. You want to try and find that hard bottom, but on a lot of commercials you might have to come quite close to you, sort of 5 metres, come up the slope a little bit, come out of the silt, and then you'll find that fish will feed a lot more confidently and you have a lot less problem with foul-hooked fish coming out of that silt. Today it's not so much of a problem because it's mainly all hard bottom, so I've chosen the fish, a top kit and 2 sections out in front of me. That's an ideal place to throw bait and I can be really efficient, I can throw bait nice and accurately. The other spot is down the edge. That's where the bigger fish tend to hang out, especially on commercials. They know that, you know, anglers throw their bait in at the end and those bigger fish have learned that they can have a good meal down the edge. So when you go to catch them down the edge, it does tend to be a bigger stamp of fish. Here I've got about 2-2.5 foot, which is a nice depth to catch on corn. You know, any shallower than that, you maybe look to catch on sort of smaller particles like micro pellets, maybe ground bait, but that's an ideal depth to catch on corn because it keeps them down on the bottom where you want them to feed and keeps foul-hooked fish to a minimum, and you can catch them nice and cleanly. Let's look at the 2 rigs before I start fishing. So to begin with, I've got my short pole rig. On this I've got a small cad pot to begin with. I've got 11 Dura slip, not nice for sort of smaller carp, and I've got a through puller bung, so if I do it something a bit bigger I can control them nice and easy. Main liners 017. I've got some back shocks, I've got a bit of an awkward wind coming up my face, so that's quite important to keep the presentation nice. But for float choice I've got a carp pellet 4x12, it's got a nice thick tip on it so I can see it nice and easy. And importantly it's buoyant so it doesn't get dragged under in the toe, and I'll be able to see bites nice and clearly. When you get a bite it's normally a sharp tug. Going down the rig I've got a little spread out bulk of number 10s about 1 inch apart, and then 5 inch below that I've got 2 number 10 droppers, 6 inch hook length a Vo 13 power line, and I've got a nice big 14 XSHB hook. And on that I can bury that nice and deeply inside of a grain of corn, and when I get a bite it's going to strike through it. It's going to be nice and concealed inside of that. Or I can also put 2 grains of corn, nice big hook for that, nice and strong, and if I do hook something big it's going to be nice and reliable. Next is my edge rig. Same again, I've got a slightly bigger cat pot. I've got the medium one on because I'm expecting maybe feed a bit more bait down the edge. And this time I've got an 11 hollow elastic. I prefer a hollow elastic just in case I hook bigger fish, and it's more likely to down the edge, and that's going to let me control, you know, a bigger fish. If it's an 8-10 pound fish down the edge, that, you know, that'd be nice for that. Stepped it up to 0.19 this time, and I've got a 4x12 carp shallow. Nice sort of steady, stable float, nice visible tip again, so it's not going to get dragged under by line bites and stuff. I've just got a simple bolt this time above my 6-inch hook length. This time I've stepped it up to I15 power, and I've got a 16 GPMB, and this time I've hair rigged it. That gives me the option of fishing 2 grains of corn with my whole hook exposed, which I think helps hit bites when you're fishing down the edge. Maybe it's not an even depth and you've got fish wafting around. I prefer the hair rig. The great thing about double corn is it stays in place. When you've got a lot of fish wafting around, that's going to stay in place. It's a nice big target bait for those fish to home in on, and I find I catch bigger fish and more fish fishing double corn. So they're my rigs. Let's see how I feed my 2 swims and start fishing. To kick off the session, I'm going to start on the short pole line. Quite often on commercials you can catch a big fish there straight away. So to begin with, all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a nice big grain of corn through the top, out the side, and I'm going to start off with my small cab pot to begin with. And I don't really want to make lots of noise and commotion to begin with. I'm just going to set my trap, hook my pole sock and see if I can catch what's there straight away, rather than make lots of noise and potentially foul hooked fish by, you know, loose feeding bait. So I'm just going to sneak that bait in, tap it out, lower my rig nice and accurately over the top. I've got a far bank marker, dead tree on the far bank. And I've also got that shot in pattern which helps me catch a few fish on the drop if they do follow the bait down quickly. But that's reached the bottom now. It's just a case of waiting. I've set my trap. So that rig's sitting there nice and steady, nice thick tip. So you've got a bit of wind on the water, but it's not getting dragged under. I've got my back shot to keep my rig steady against the wind. Just keeping my back shot level with the top of the water. Okay, nice positive bite, straight under. You can tell straight away that's a decent fish. So I'm just going to take it steady to begin with. Obviously later on in the session I might choose to loose feed bait over the top, but I'm just going to try and catch what's there to begin with, and then I can think about upping the feed. Coming in nice and steady, there's no point rushing. And when you do catch a big fish, when you do catch a fish on either a short pole or down the edge, it's likely to be a bigger fish. Okay. Nice typical commercial carp. There we go. Nice immaculate looking fish. It won't take long to build a weight when you're catching them. So same again, single grain of corn, I'm going to fill the pot right up again. Just squeeze it so it doesn't fall out. This time what I think I'm going to do is just let the bait fall from the pot from a height. What that does makes a bit of an extra noise, because it took a little while to get that bite. So hopefully that's going to draw the fish back again, and it won't take too long. There we go, straight away. So they've come to that noise. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to loose feed over the top, ready for my next fish. And the great thing about corn is you can do that because it's a heavy bait. It's going to go straight down and sit on the bottom. You're not going to cause too many foul at fish by loose feeding. The only issue you tend to have really is accuracy of feeding corn, but that's when you can mix it up a bit. You can loose feed, but then when I go back in again, I could feed with my pot and set a little sort of focus point up where my hook bait's going to be, with a nice pile of bait next to it, and that loose feeding bait's going to draw fish into my peg. This aeroplane. So that 11 Dura slips, getting them under control nice and easy. There we go, another nice fish. I think we'll catch a few more and then we'll catch up in a bit, see how I get on. There we go, another fish on the short line. Today's sport's been brilliant, really hectic. The key things that I've picked up today is the importance of loose feeding. They've really come to the noise of the corn hitting the water. You know, that's often the case on commercials. They're really tuned into noise and bait hitting the water. They know what it is. It's like ringing the dinner bell, sorry. And so I've hooked that fish and I'm loose feeding over the top. And when I've gone back in again, I've used my cad pot to set a nice little accurate trap, and it keeps the fish sort of homing over towards my hook bait and creates a nice focal point in amongst that loose feed. And I can catch them a lot quicker using the pot, just setting that little trap in amongst all the loose feed. It's another typical fish. Fighting nice and hard, but there we go, nice common, nice one to finish the session on the short line. But let's see if we can catch a few bigger fish down the edge. So moving on, we've now got the margin swim. It's later on in the day, we've had a few fish out in front, and this is the time of day when typically bigger fish tend to feed down the edge. It's when anglers throw the bait in at the end of the session, so they're used to volumes of bait down the margins, so it pays to be a little bit more positive when feeding down the edge. So to begin with, I'm going to feed a nice big handful of corn with my big pot, and I'm fishing about 5 metres down to the reeds to my left. Found a nice flattish spot that I can feed nice and accurately on top of, and it's important to find a nice flattish spot, so your rig sort of, when it does get moved around, it's a nice depth, and they're all feeding on sort of a tabletop, if you like. So now I've fed that, I'm going to go straight in over the top. They're used to volumes of bait, going into the water, so it pays to have a little look straight over the top to see if they come to it. And if they have gone straight over the top, then I think we're in for a big weight. So because I've fed all that bait, I'm going to go for a double piece of corn on my hair rig, nice big target bait. It's going to stick out in amongst those 3 offerings, and we'll go straight in over the top and see if we can get a fish straight away. See, there's only a handful of corn, so it's not a big volume, and I am expecting to catch fairly quickly, so I'm just lowering it nice and slowly over the top, making sure I'm nice and accurate. And my rig's set close to dead depth. I'm not fishing with lots of line on the bottom. I think it's better to fish nice and accurately, and when you do get a bite, you're going to see it straight away on the float tip. So I'm expecting to see a few sort of liners back and forth. I think there's one there moving the float nice and slowly, and I'm just waiting for a really positive shoot under. So I had to readjust my rig because it was moving out of place by a fish. So there's 1 or 2 there we go. So that was a nice positive bite, and that'll be in the mouth nice and clean, no foul-hooked fish. And that's the beauty with corn, it's nice and heavy, and you get them feeding in one place and not wafting it around like you can with other baits and potentially foul-hooked fish. That was just nice and clean, straight in, nice positive bite, and no messing around. So that 11 hollow is working quite nice, keeping it under control. And if I do hook a big fish that charges off in the middle of the lake, it gives me a chance to turn it before it potentially bottoms me out and snaps me. And that's why I prefer hollow elastic when you're fishing down the edge. You've got that bit more stretch and give. That's definitely a bigger stamp of fish. And when you're fishing down the edge, you can afford to wait a little longer for fish like these. Nice size fish. It won't take you long to build a big weight on commercials fishing down the edge. So let's put that one back and see if we can catch another one. So again, I'm going to hair rig two nice sized grains of corn. See what we can find. Nice sort of rounded ones. Nice big target bait there. And this time, I've started off with a big pot, but this time I'm going to feed through the medium sized cad pot, fill it right up with corn, and see if we can feed like that. I'm going to shit down some swim, turn the pot over nice and accurately, tap it out, and I'm going to lay my hook bait straight in over the top, and I'm expecting a fairly quick bite over the top of that. Indication straight away. So again, I'm waiting for a nice positive shoot under like that, nice and cleanly, so that fish has come straight to that bait. My hook bait is in amongst it, and we've hooked one nice and cleanly down the edge. Feels like another decent fish. There we go. almost a carbon copy of the one I just had. So that sums up a nice session. Let's see what we've had during the day. So there we go, a few fish from today. Hopefully you've learnt a few things from my tips that can help you get more fish like these on the bank next time you're out. Cheers.